We'll start with the pleas from Palestinian-Canadians for the feds to help get their family members stuck in Gaza out. Ottawa responded just before Christmas with a temporary visa program for people who have extended family here in Canada, expanding the program from just immediate family. Applications opened today, but Canadians with family in Gaza are concerned the program is capped at a maximum of 1,000 visas.
There is a bigger demand than 1,000. Knowing that there is a capability of this government to do more, knowing that the processes exist, the possibilities exist, the appetite exists, the demand exists, knowing all of this, it really comes across as something very disingenuous.
And Federal Immigration Minister Mark Miller joins us now. Hi, Minister. Good to have you back on the show. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me on.
We've heard from a number of families today, Minister, who are upset about the fact that this program has a cap of 1,000 people. Why did your government institute that cap?
Well, first, we are trying to keep people alive, get them to safety. We have no clear sense of what the volume is of people that are not Canadian, but do have family connections in Canada. So it's about managing a flow of a number that we are uncertain about, and making sure that we have gotten this program right. You know that we have been able to secure the exit of several hundred Canadians, but there are many Palestinian-Canadians in Canada that want to get their families out of there. So we're willing to remain flexible. We want to get a sense of what that volume is, and that's why we put this number there. It was the estimates that we had internally was from a few hundred, perhaps to a little more. But we'll get a sense over the coming days of what that number actually looks like.
So, Minister, when you say you want to remain flexible, I just want to ask you to expand on that, because I know there are a lot of people who have family members there who are very concerned about your wording, right, about the fact that this cap has been imposed. They weren't aware of your explanation that it perhaps is due to logistics. They think it's a hard and fast cap. Is it not?
No, it isn't. And it is conventional for a number of these programs to have an internal number that is established. This was one that we thought at the outset, in the context of something that's being done over in relatively short period of time, understanding that it's a war zone in Gaza, was something to manage flow, understand what the numbers are, and then remain flexible on the fly if we do see numbers that exceed that. So far, gauging from our hotline over the Christmas period and initial uptake, those numbers have remained modest, but I can't exclude the fact that they may increase over the coming days as the portal that we opened for application opened earlier today. Again, to the families, obviously we will be remaining flexible. This is not a generalized resettlement program. It is a specific targeted program for families of loved ones that are Canadians, to keep people safe and alive, not without the complications that operating in Gaza present.
And certainly have some questions about those complications in a moment. But your government has pursued programs like this, very targeted. For example, when it came to Ukrainians, they didn't even need to have family here. It was a temporary resettlement or temporary visa program as well. You didn't institute any kind of cap there. And Palestinian Canadians we've spoken with are drawing a comparison, right? And they're concerned that that would indicate a different kind of treatment of them versus Ukrainians. Can you respond to that concern?
Well, first, look, I understand the emotion, but I think the comparison is not something that is appropriate. With the case of Ukraine, we were facing a nuclear aggressor in Russia, attacking functioning government in Ukraine. No one would propose that we would deal with Hamas in Gaza. There are also geopolitical realities of what that represents in the Middle East. The proposed resettlement of thousands and thousands of Gaza, in some cases, is equated to the emptying of Gaza, which is not at all what we're trying to do. We're just trying to keep family members, or iterations of what would be, for all intents and purposes, a Canadian or a permanent resident family in Canada, safe and alive and doing our part. We are the only country, to my knowledge, that is actually doing this in such an extended way. So there are challenges, but I think any comparisons generally to really what was a historic program with Ukraine is inept and not really one that is adapted to the situations at hand that we face in Gaza.
Yeah, I'm certainly not insinuating that they're completely analogous, but I'm referencing the family members whom I've interviewed, the Palestinian-Canadians, who certainly drew the comparison as soon as they heard that cap, because your government did not immediately say what you did tonight, which is that that cap is not hard and fast. There are 210,000 Ukrainians who were able to arrive here. Certainly they face a threat, an immense threat when it comes to Russia, and we know the details of the war that's going on there. But you yourself have called the conditions in Gaza unlivable.
Yes, they are. And, again, I don't like indulging in the comparison, but in the case of Ukraine, we also had partner countries that were willing to do their fair share in resettling people and making sure that they had a safe temporary space outside of Ukraine. We'd have no sense that this is happening with respect to Gaza. And again, the geopolitical context is such that we feel it's appropriate as a humanitarian matter that Canada steps up and allows people to come out. If we can get that to happen, it is certainly not a home run, and get them to safety in Canada for a temporary period as we continue to advocate for a ceasefire and a durable one.
I want to follow up, Minister, on the if there, because we have witnessed over the past number of months how difficult it is for people to cross that border at Rafah, to even get to that border. How certain are you, how certain can you be that the people who do end up being approved through this application process that opened today will actually be able to leave and get into Cairo?
I'm not, and I don't want to entertain any false hope. Canada doesn't control that border crossing, as you know well. Vassy, it's a combination of Israeli authorities, Egypt, and even a terrorist group in Hamas. And they've been known to play games with respect to Canadians or permanent residents that we've tried to get out, and it's been exceedingly difficult with windows opening, closing, at times seemingly on an arbitrary basis. We will do our part. I think Canadians wouldn't forgive us if we didn't try to keep loved ones and want people that have a connection to Canada safe and out, first into Egypt and then to Canada if they pass all the security procedures, which are not, that are quite onerous. But I think we have to try, and I can't give anyone any guarantees tonight from standing here in Canada in my office, but what I can give the guarantee is that Canada will try to keep people and families of Canadians safe.
Do you have any sense, Minister, and I understand, I acknowledge that it's going to be different depending on each application, but on average, do you have any kind of internal estimation? If someone did apply today and were able to have their application approved, how long the total process could take?
Look, I'm hoping as quickly as possible, but it will take some time, contrary to Canadian citizens, with respect to whom we don't impose biometric conditions to get out of Gaza. We will have to do biometrics and security clearances for those people. In the case of complete submissions that are done immediately, we'll do our utmost to get people out. We have worked surprisingly under difficult conditions to get people out that aren't Canadians. Some people of a very young age, and we brought them to safety to Canada on an ad hoc basis. So there are some proof points there, but to be able to do that in a systematic fashion with all the variables that I don't control, it'd be frankly careless, probably to speculate.
Have there been any conversations about a more systematic approach, as you describe it, versus the ad hoc among your counterparts or among the foreign minister's counterparts in the region or the parties involved in those conversations, obviously save and except Hamas?
Well, what we've done when it comes to getting people specifically out of Gaza is worked with the cards that were being dealt, which is the security atmosphere and the need to clear lists with local authorities. We are not in, and I want to be clear about this, in any organized way discussing the resettlement of populations outside of Gaza. That is geopolitically fraught. That conversation first has to start with a cessation and a durable cessation of the hostilities. But we know the history behind this. This isn't about emptying Gaza. This is about keeping people temporarily safe. So any coordinated work that we need to do with allies first has to focus on a durable cessation of the hostilities, what governance in a post-war Gaza looks like, and then other governance issues, including repatriation of people to the land that they belong on.
Minister, I'll leave it there. I'm out of time. I do appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.